There are plenty of students for all of us if we just widened our funnels a little bit and looked at the types of students and our obligation for preparing these students to be successful at our institutions.
Widened our funnels, bought more names. Widened our funnels, admitted more kids. What are you saying?
First of all, if you're a freshman-focused enrollment operation, you are going to have a bad decade. If you are not open to ulterior pathways like via transfer into your institution, you're going to have a bad decade. Unless of course you're in the top brands.
You're talking about like diversification of incoming student. Okay, yeah.
Absolutely. I also think you have to look at, this has been a movement a long time coming. Selectivity, in my opinion, pointless metric. And for years it's been sort of a surrogate for quality. It's not a surrogate for quality. I think the insiders know that, but the general public does not know that. And so you have to start admitting to a different standard and identifying talent in different places. And you have to analyze price points relative to different populations. Look at community colleges just by example, right? So in the best community colleges in the US, only 20% of the students who say they want a 4-year degree go on and get a 4-year degree. At least 80% of potential students that could be captured with different approaches. It's the same in high schools. Look at your low-income high schools. There's talent there. There are people who can be successful in college. We've got to cultivate that. We got to build new markets out of the same places. We have to build new markets out of the same locales.
Hello, humans. We are here with a man so cool that he is known only by his last name, David Burge. Thank you, Burge. Thank you for being here. David is the Vice President of Enrollment Management at George Mason University. Many of you know and love this man.
At least you know him. If not the second one, the first one, for sure.
It's optional. Second one is optional. I have a question about you being called Burge, because like everyone calls you Burge. Were you like Baby Burge? Have you been Burge your whole life? It sounded like Baby Bird, but
it's like Baby Billy from Righteous Gemstones. No, I have evolved through the years, right? And usually you can tell who the age of the friend by what they call me. Like, so if I knew you in high school, maybe even a little college, you're calling me Dave.
Dave. I've never.
I know, right?
Dave. I've never thought about Dave.
I know, right? And sometimes some of my frenemies like to boil that down to Davey, which is the only one I don't care for, candidly. Early professional career was David. Then at Arizona State, for some reason, they called me DB, and I think there was a little something there, that little double entendre in that one. And then I get to Mason, and there's 4 Davids in the senior leadership structure, and so I declared Burge, and it kind of stuck. So for the last 10 years, I've been Burge.
Okay. All right. A late evolution. Okay. Well, it's, kind of a flex to be known by your last name. It's sort of badass. Take it.
Tell me another Burge that first or last name besides me.
None.
Zero.
I need to
Emily
know more
Smith.
of your family.
Emily
Yeah,
Smith.
Yes, I'm hearing it too.
Okay, good.
Not as unique as I'd like to be.
Your personality, incredibly unique, incredibly rare.
I have to have a plain name to contain all of this.
To pull this off?
Yeah, I get it. I see it too. Okay, David Burge. Burge, you are here to talk to us today about enrollment management and data, because you both run and advise a NACAT course on this topic and are sort of an expert about all things data. And I'd like to ask you a question about sort of how folks know they're in an office that uses enrollment data well or not well. I think about the congressional definition of pornography, where they say, like, we know it when we see it.
Right.
And I'm curious if you can tell us about like how you know when you see it with data, not the other one, please.
I was going to say, so maybe are you going to like show me some examples? It's like,
nope.
Is this it? Is this it? Which is it? No. Okay. So how do I know if I'm in a data informed culture? The obvious answer is by assessing how easy or difficult it is for you to get your hands on actual useful data for the job you perform, right? Like, so one of the things we do in our class is I set the entire class out and I say, your job is to go and get historical information on your application funnel by high school for the last 3 years. And the look of panic in some of their faces is just immediately evident.
Oh, like where do I even start to what direction?
Exactly. And I'll get a handful of emails that first week saying, hey, I can't do it, or I need help with this. And I always tell them to persevere, because that's the first thing, is being an advocate for data is what I try to teach them to do. The second is that are you actually taking data and making decisions with it? In other words, sometimes people love to show up with a chart, or they love to, sort of like drop a few, nuggets here and there, but it's like superfluous. It's meaningless. Like, what does that mean?
Oh, like we made a list, like we're not doing anything with it, but here it is. It did the thing.
That's right. Look, we got 10 applications this year. We got 9 applications the year before. We're doing well.
And you're doing like, and then
That's right. And I talk about, like, okay, data is not the destination. It's the vehicle for the destination, right? It helps you figure out how to get there and the best way to get there, and whether or not you're actually meeting your objectives.
Okay, I get that.
So those are two. Those are two. Another way, I suppose, is how are you being handed data by someone who's smart and has system access and tells you what you should be looking at? Or are you empowered to explore the data in whatever ways you can, right? Like thinking of new questions and ways to query it. That's probably a healthy culture if you're living in that world.
Okay, but that's like a second order thing, because it's like, first, do you have it?
Mm-hmm.
And can you access it? The second is like, okay, and how much can you interact with it?
That's right.
Okay, I get it. Do you use data driven and data informed interchangeably? I have known some people who have like serious opinions about the difference between those phrases. Like, do you care?
I don't care. I mean, no, I don't care. But however, I know those people, and I remember I had a mentor who was just really adamant. It's like, no, data doesn't decide. We decide. Data informs. And so I ran with it.
Okay, yeah, I get it. I get it.
What do you think? Well, I don't know. What do you think?
I used to care. Like, I used to care. I don't care anymore. I used to care because of the chilliness that data driven offered. It wasn't the like data doesn't decide. It was like, well, if you call yourself data driven, that cuts out the need for like the warm humanness of our work, which obviously is important to me because I'm a big weirdo. But I think like it doesn't actually matter. Like I think you the humanness is implicit, and you actually can't sort of cut it out no matter what you do or how you talk about data. Like it doesn't actually matter. So yeah, I spent some like a couple of years ago feeling pretty imperious about like, well, it's data informed and that's the warmer way to do it. And now I could give a shit.
Yeah, no, it's about it. I show in the class this visualization, and it sort of shows data at the bottom and the visualization on the sides, but really it's about engagement and illuminating insights and unlocking a conversation in order to then make a decision. Like if you're broken down at any step in that visualization, then you're not going to get to where you want to be.
Right. Well, along those lines, what misconceptions, as like we are adopting this convention of using data driven, data informed interchangeably.
Did you say David informed? Now that's David informed is something I can get behind. Just FYI.
I'll just tell you what to do every time.
David driven? That sounds like asking you to move or something. I'm not going to
That
help
sounds
you
more like the congressional definition of pornography to me. Okay. Tell me about the misconceptions that you might see in like what misconceptions around being data driven still persist in our world. Because like I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about, and that we would come up with the same definition. But where do you think we have some misconceptions that we probably should clean up as an enrollment industry?
Yeah, okay. I mean, the first is that there's some real foundational work that you should start with. I mean, lots of folks on the vendor side will love to present you with a data set that they tell a present company excluded. Obviously. But I'm right about this. They'll show up and they'll say, "Here is how you need to order your business and structure your business, and here's the data that will kind of inform that." And there is something to be learned from that. And let's say that there's a good chunk of people who are actually right about that. But if you're not foundationally grounded in, let's just say, the basics of your application funnel, right? Like if you aren't grounded in how do apps and completions and admits and confirmations and enrolls add up to an actual goal driven approach, that then you're not really, I mean, you've got data on the outside and nothing on the inside. After that,
Thin candy shell.
exactly, you're the M&Ms of data informed. And the really, I think there's a lot of data out there that can illuminate and provide insights, but if you're not actually tying it back to a very specific goal, that's the first misconception. Data should be goal driven.
Oh, not just data for data's sake. Okay, yes, I like that.
Yeah, right. Like, and I, one of the first things I ask the students in my class is, how many of you are operating with actual goals? And guess what? Newsflash, it's not 100%. Newsflash is not even 75%.
I would also I talk to people in your position all day long, and I have for friggin' 20 years, and I would say that, like, it is not 100% of enrollment leaders who are clear what their goals are. So it is not at all surprising to me that the, staff who are emerging leaders in your programs, like, also don't have goals, because that doesn't trickle down if it's nothing at the top.
True. The people who I find consistently have at least an inkling of goals would be presidents and chief financial officers. These are folks who are.
They're running the business.
That's right. And so some of that depends on your seat on the bus, right? Like, as your enrollment management division, and I'm not trying to say one is better, but is it student affairs? Is it academic affairs? Is it in the business operations? And I've seen all three. But the I find in my work, and at least in my situation, I'm the bridge sometimes between the business offices and the academic offices, trying to kind of speak that language in between the two groups. So yes, and nobody handed me goals, even when I was in an admissions office doing territory work. I made my own goals, though, right? That's the agency that I try to encourage in the class, is that don't wait for somebody to hand this to you.
That's right on, and I can spot it from a mile away when an enrollment leader says to me, like, "I don't have my goals," or "I don't know my goals. I haven't been given my goals," which tells me that they're not doing the right modeling for any of the behaviors that they would then go do with their team or their budget or whatever. Like, to say, you could do a top down, a bottom up, whatever, to say, like, this is the number, this is what we're trying to do, and then allows your team to break it up into smaller chunks, like, makes sense to me. It's also remarkable to me the number of enrollment leaders I speak to who, like, if I say, like, "Hey, Burge, where are you?" You would be able to say, like, "Oh, about like this." Might not be able to give me to the ones place on the number, but if you can't give me to at least the 100th place, like, I'm a little bit worried about a few operational things.
As you should be. Yeah, I the number one question I get as an enrollment leader from campus constituents is simply this: how is enrollment looking? Right? Like, that's the open-ended question I get. And I get it from really smart people too. And you're right. Like, so, and in a comprehensive enrollment landscape. So Mason's a comprehensive research university, right? We got PhDs, we got masters, we got freshmen, we got a transfer. Like, we got a lot that can go right and a lot that can go wrong. So I can sort of cherry pick in that. But in each one of those, I know what the goal is. I know what the admit goal is for each of those. I know what the applicant goal is for each of
Mm,
those. Ipso facto, I should be able to say at any given time, down to the percentage, we're on pace, off pace to those goals.
sure.
Thing is, nobody else will know that but me. So I can somewhat, like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can
like,
somewhat, yeah,
it's enrollment, it's great, great.
yeah.
Things are great.
Yeah, exactly. Cautiously optimistic, right? There's that nonsense.
I met an enrollment leader this week in person, and I looked under the table because I'm a weirdo, and I said, "Excuse me, are you wearing dumpster fire socks?" And he goes, "Yeah, because dump dumpster fire." I'm like, "You didn't know, I get it. I get it. That seems accurate about how things are going."
It's a sign of the times. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yes. Okay, so if you've been part of, I'm assuming, being like this transformational voice of getting of an office from being not data driven to being data driven or more data informed.
I didn't love the tone in that sentence. I'm
No?
just going to
Okay,
say
I
it's,
was
it's like
mocking you.
your
Okay.
transformational voice.
Well, I didn't like you. Okay, David, let me say it more neutrally. You surely have been part of offices moving from being less data informed to more data informed.
I hope so.
Fact? Okay, yes. What's something that surprised you in a story there? So, like, if you've changed this culture from point A to point B, you're looking back then going like, "Oh, well, we're here now." And so, like, what meaning are you making of some of those transformations? Any good stories?
A couple, right? Like so right when I got to Mason, the very first thing that I set about to do in this camp is to open up the admissions data to the campus community. And it was harder than I thought to convince the admissions folks to do that at the time.
Oh, just to make it visible and intelligible across the campus.
Correct. Democratized, so it's modeled, it's dashboarded in a way that everybody can kind of see the same thing and then drill down into what they wanted to do. And it took me a while to convince IT that was a reasonable security framework. It took me a while to reference the admissions folks who were worried about people misinterpreting it or misusing that data, and then people in the academic units who were worried that other units were going to use that data to somehow kind of poach students from other disciplines.
Oh, because you're working within a college system within a university. Yeah, I got it. Okay.
Yes, thank you. That's absolutely. I think that's a good point of clarity. And so to democratize it and to focus on less about access to data and more about interpretation of what that data meant. And over time, I mean, I my favorite thing in the world actually is when I show up to meetings and someone brings that data to me. Right? They show up like they have no idea that I had anything to do with it. It's like, do you know what our application volume is right now?
Do you know why you have that in your hand right now?
Right. Like it's like, first of all, you're welcome. Second of all, yes, let's talk about it. Because that changes the conversation.
Okay, so just making it visible then brings up different behaviors like asking questions or pushing things, and that's sort of like the dissent that you want to establish to get good work done. Like,
Absolutely. I mean, really what I want is I want people to be as hungry for the data as I am, right? Like my order of business in the morning is log in. Depending on the time of year, I'm checking 6 or 7 different things, whether it's continuing student registration or FAFSA submission, whatever it happens to be. And I don't want people to be the rat pushing the feed bar to stimulate melatonin
food?
release or whatever,
Oh.
or brain chemistry. But I do want people to be hungry for more data and to come to me and say, this is what I've seen, but here's what I want to know. And that's when I feel like we're actually moving culture.
Okay, yeah, because you're getting to that like next order thing, those higher order things. Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me.
The flip side, can I give you the flip side? The flip side is paralysis, right? The flip side is to say, oh my God, I've got this, but what I really need is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Until I know those things, I can't do anything,
Mhm.
right? And you can never get data to give you everything you need to know. At a certain point, you have to take a risk and make a choice based off of that information.
Yeah, I mean, like, to fill out that, like, given that statement, like, given that the data is this, we are going to go do this, right? Like, that's the thing you're driving for. But you're right, like, that just indicates if you're being paralyzed by the data, that's then indicating where's the breakdown. Like, we're not helping you make the meaning of it, or we're providing it for you in a way that you cannot digest, or the visualizations aren't helpful to you.
I had a conversation with an academic unit. Um, this was 7 or 8 years ago, and she was upset with me. It's like our freshman numbers. We don't know if we can accommodate all these people. We have to know how many are coming. And I just looked at it and I said, did you not open the dashboard until today? Because your application volume has been trending 20, 30% up all year long, as is your admit volume. This is knowable and foreseeable, right? And so data kind of started the conversation in a crabby way, and I guess I kind of made it crabbier in my
Mm,
response.
yeah.
But you see, the point is that some people look at data and they say, all right, well, the interpretation is going to be obvious to anybody who would look at it, but that's very rarely true in an emerging data culture.
Well, yeah, I think what you're baking in there though is like the implicit understanding of leading indicators because we don't have a lot of those in our world, right? Like enrollment is like a one baseball game a year, where like it's like play by play slowly. We can stat it all out.
Hmm.
We can slow it all down, and then we look back and we're like, "Well, how did we do? Did we do it?" But there's like not much. I mean, a couple points along the way, like application volume or if the admit rate has gone up over that period of time that like gets you ahead of things that would then like help you make decisions.
I totally agree with you. I mean, and I mean, this. I'm going to make a comment that's straight out of 2006, but like the stealth applicant phenomenon, right? Like the pre-applicant funnel is less reliable than it's ever been, and only getting less reliable as time marches on.
Yes. Yeah, I'm glad we dropped that. Or like we dropped the outrage around that. Like that's a good thing because that was not worth chasing down in the way that we were chasing it down in that chapter of time.
100%. And I look at, I mean, so the amount of, I remember early on in my career, again around that time, around late 20, the aughts, 2005 to aught 9, right? Inquiries. Remember when inquiries really mattered, right? I could care less about inquiries at this point in time, right? I care about visits, I care about event attendance as indicators, as like trending, but there is nothing that is sort of prescriptive about the work right now, until you get into the app funnel. Again, that's that foundational work.
Right, that like a little bit of friction actually is the indicator for like what is going to happen. Meaning like to apply requires a little like you have to do some things and take a little friction. Okay, I want to go back to the rat feed bar thing. Because you're like, yeah, I wake up and I do these things, and I think like I felt hungry to know more about what your daily rituals are, because I think there's a lot of like the ways that you conduct your day as a data-driven enrollment person, whether you're like,
Again with the tone.
sorry, it's mocking. I'm sorry. You know why I'm mocking you is because I have to practice being data-driven myself in my own work. This is not natural for me, so I'm reaching out with barbs because I am self-conscious that I don't do this stuff naturally.
Fair enough.
Wow, you've never heard a more real moment on the Vine Down
It's
audience.
important to be vulnerable. It's
Yes,
important to be vulnerable
nothing
in
if
any
not that.
relationship.
Truth. Okay, so we know I struggle with this, and I found myself hungry as a person who's not good at this naturally. I have to like actually practice this. What you're like, yeah, I wake up, I log in, I do these things, and I'm like, but wait, slow it down. Like, what do you do? Like, what do you look at? What do you pull up? Like, do you do that twice a day? Do you do that once a day? Can you say more about your daily routines
Yeah.
that others might adopt?
So first of all, you have to understand when your data updates, right? Like, so in other words,
Know what you're looking at.
that's right. I mean, and particularly if you're looking at it over, on a daily basis, and candidly, really, honestly, truthfully, to look at it on a daily basis most often is not a healthy practice,
Hmm.
right? Because it does not change dramatically. I mean, and again, I can go back in the Wayback Machine, and I worked with people who would say, yeah, we were accumulating, 7 international applications a day, but I noticed it dropped down to 4, and what's up with that? And it's like, dude, a daily swing isn't gonna really matter in the grand. Like your analogy was perfect, right? It's this the sales cycle is long, and it's one play. So I do go in and I do look up, and typically I'll start with and as I mentioned, it's seasonal, but let's say this time of year, for example, I'm looking first and foremost at completed applications, admits, and really focusing on confirmations, right? Because that's just the leading indicator that is relevant right now. So I will log in, and I typically look for the spots that aren't performing, right. Like I look for the outliers, and I say to myself, okay, what college or what unit is working really well or working really poorly, and I monitor that down to the college level. I'm not necessarily looking at every college every day, but if I know somebody's struggling, I'm kind of peeking in on that. Um, the other thing I'll look at is and continuing student registration, again, depending on the time of year, and I will ask myself, okay, not only what is the head count, what is the credit hour, but what's the percentage of the people who could register that have registered compared to the percentage who could register and had registered at this point in time last year. Um, and then honestly, I just know what my president cares about, and I know what my provost cares about. And so I don't want to walk out of my office without having the most up-to-date information about what my president cares about.
Oh, because there's a risk of literally encountering that human, and you need to like be on it for that day.
100%. And to basically answer that question, how does enrollment look?
Okay, fear-based behaviors. I like that.
100% it's fear-based behaviors.
No, I mean that's preparedness as an executive, but I get what you're saying.
Look, I was a Boy Scout. You got to be prepared.
Totally. Okay, and when you're talking about I'm looking at these things, are you looking in your CRM? Are you looking in Tableau? Are you looking what's in your stack?
Yeah, fair enough. Too many visualization tools,
Sure.
candidly. Yeah, I mean, so it all depends on what I'm at trying to. You got to know what you're looking for to know where to look. Case in point, basic app funnel stuff. That's all in MicroStrategy, which is our university enterprise tool, right? If you want to get into, let's say, things like time to decision, I'm looking at Salesforce, TargetX for that information, because that's we haven't modeled that in our central system, because the people who care about that it's a kind of a smaller
group. Okay.
If I am looking, and then there's sort of ad hoc tools. We do use Tableau, but we use that on the aid leveraging side. We punch in, grab data, pull it out, model it around the aid side, because the data security around financial aid information is so much more heightened by regulation that we have to kind of lock that down to survive audits. So we have kind of our own reporting environment unique to enrollment management that allows us to answer a certain series of questions as well.
Okay.
But to your point, it's not like it's one system and you can get all served in one place at one time.
A boy can dream.
And I think it's a good dream.
Well, okay, let me ask you sort of a different angle on a similar question. Like, let's say you landed tomorrow as the VP of enrollment at a fictional college, and that college had a CRM, but that's it. What's like your top 3 moves? Like, I need to go buy a this, or like I need to create a this, a this. Like, what's of all the tools you've ever used, like where are you heading?
I would say the path of least resistance to the most value that I've seen is Tableau, right? And so you have to invest in creating the data set and modeling the data in the right way. So you're at least pulling the data out of a CRM. Ideally, I've not met a single CRM that has all the data that I need to do the analysis that I mean, it needs help, right? But you can build that data set in a variety of different ways, like and pulling it into a central environment. So step 1 is to pick the right visualization tool. Step 2 is to build the right model data set, which is harder than you think, and it's not something that a lit major could do. It's something you've got to go and get actual talent to do. And since you asked me for 3 steps, is the third thing I would want to do then after that is I would want to share that broadly and go and socialize that actively, right? So I'm showing up, teaching people to fish. I've seen far too many data informed cultures where you got one person who plays gotcha with the data and shows up as if to say, what are you doing about this? And somehow expects to create an engaging, innovative culture as a result of that. That you need people coming to you and say, check out what I found. This is what we're doing about it. Here's what I need from you to help me do something about it.
Such a difference, like such a change there. Okay, we've been talking a lot about like you, the enrollment leader, but are most of the people who take your course, what level are they in their admissions journey?
Let's say in the 3 to 7 years range.
Okay, so like early career.
Yeah.
Okay, and a lot of territory managers, a lot of people who are still like managing their own territory or getting into that like associate director.
You know what we see a lot of is we see a lot of whole teams come. So an associate director would bring 4 or 5 territory managers. They all do the class together. I've seen a fair number of CRM managers, people who are manage the CRM but don't manage a territory. Their eyes light up when they kind of understand that the work that happens in the territory management actually shows up in their CRM, and you can kind of draw causal connections to those things. It's really fun. Fair number, I get some of the grad folk in there. I think they're horribly disappointed sometimes because it's such an undergrad focus, exercise, but when they
Mm,
make it work. But most are people who've been doing the work for a couple of years and then are trying to sort of retrofit data onto what they think they already know.
sure, and sort of do it in reverse. That makes sense why you would do that if that's your only way in. Okay, but let's say you're talking to a territory manager and you were like, "Okay, you need to start tomorrow to do these things. You may or may not get permission, like go crazy, do these things, start tomorrow to become more data driven in your own territory management." Is it the same process shrunk down, which is like know your thing, set a goal, and then communicate the thing? Is it like that same process just shrunken for your territory?
It could be.
I mean, I'm guessing. Like, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I do talk to the class about how, in order for them to have maximum value, they have to engage with their leadership during the class, and their leadership should be the ones to help kind of guide them to what they care about in that process. So I would be reluctant to suggest that an individual territory manager, in the absence of no data modeling, would start modeling something unique
Something.
to their territory. Just because, again, it is a skill. Like, we do train people how to do this, and there are masters and PhDs in how to do this well. Um, and I wouldn't want within an enrollment operation 6 different interpretations of what an application means, right? Um, so I would say the first thing they need to do is identify themselves as an agent of cultural change in their office and start advocating for access to that data across the spectrum.
Okay, but do you then talk about how that sets up a virtuous cycle of like, if you do good storytelling around data, even at small levels, then you get more resources and support to do more things with data. Like, do you talk about sort of setting up that flywheel of like why you would start?
100%. In fact, I talk about I'm glad you mentioned storytelling, because to me that's where the territory manager is essential. Is that I can look at a report and I can kind of get a sense of what I think is happening in the territory, but the person who's on the ground, who knows the counselor, who can visualize what the high school looks like and smells like, and
Ugh.
understands a little, oh well, you know what I'm talking about, though.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
The
talking about.
cafeteria smell. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, exactly. Walk by the gym on the way to the counseling office. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So it is that actually, that's the real value they provide, is the narrative that underpins the data, and that I don't have the bandwidth or visibility to see.
Okay, what goes into a good story? Is it like this high school closed and the students are in the saloons? Is it like the weather has been bad and so that like what are the ingredients in the story then?
Good question, and obviously it depends, but some of the ones that I've used, some of the ones that I've heard, I mean, that are kind of obvious. Oh, this year's senior class is 20% smaller than the senior class before, right? Is one example, or 20% larger. Or I've heard this one before. You know what? We had this, valedictorian, captain of the women's basketball team, very popular person. She went to, school X, and they became very popular for a minute, and therefore there was a blip in application, something like that. I've heard those types of things. Um, the other the one that I seem to hear the most is, this class is just weird. They're just late actors. They're just, they're not on the ball the way that the others were.
Is that permissible to you or do you push on that?
Garbage. The word is garbage. That word is garbage.
Yeah, how would you okay, let's say I said that. Let's say my territory, I was in trouble. I'm a territory manager and I'm like not doing well. and you and I are having a one-on-one, and I'm like, David, my territory blows, my app numbers are down, I'm struggling. I've been thinking about why, because I know you're going to ask me why. And David, it's just a weird class. They're just a bunch of weirdos. They're late and weird. And that's what I got for you. They're just that. Like,
That's a
what
bad.
would,
That's a bad answer. But let me preview that. Can I reframe that?
oh, sure. Yes.
I actually care more that you have a credible answer than I care that it's up. Right?
Oh, like even when it's bad, you just need to know why.
I need to know why, because we have to develop strategies. We have to develop interventions in that front. So,
Yeah. Whether it's good or bad, what are the questions you're asking me
well, I mean,
if I don't have the answer?
what did the school counselor say? Well, how many, yeah, what was the visit like? What questions did you get when you were at the visit? When was the last time you visited? I mean, the school counselor is number one. If school's underperforming or even like overperforming, if by the time it gets to me and the counselor hasn't at least had and made an attempt, and keep in mind, I have nothing but tremendous respect and admiration for our school counseling community. And they're the last thing that they want to do is take 37 phone calls from reps who are trying to feed the data beast of their home
Yeah.
institution.
Yeah.
But you got to try. Like that's why you have a human being and not, just have it done via digital marketing.
Okay. So it's like, are you getting that intel from the counselor? What if I said, like, David, I don't know what to ask the counselor about what's going on?
I would say, well, where were you when we were training you on how to do the high school visits? But that's neither here nor there. I would say, okay, well then as a follow up to this conversation, I would like for you to just reveal this to the school counselor that we're noticing this trend, ask them if they have an opinion on it, and then let's talk about it afterwards.
Okay.
But you need to, I mean, I can't undersell the value of effort in this, right? Effort and the attempts to understand goes a long way with me. And I will help you figure out tactics and strategies, but you've got to sort of be invested to the point that you care to try to figure it out.
I want to stay on storytelling and dig into potentially a time when you did this yourself or watched someone else do this, where data storytelling influenced bigger institutional decisions and what made that story compelling, like what made it land in that moment.
So one of the best ways is data storytelling influencing aid leveraging.
Mm.
And this is hard and the timing of it is funky. But I've seen some of my colleagues give great presentations on this. Like I was at Acro. Well, you and I were at AcroSem. Boyd Bradshaw doing a great presentation on a process that led to a scholarship program at Towson that he was running.
Fellow Vine Down alum, Boyd Bradshaw.
Love it, of course, because he's everywhere at all times, doing everything. And what I love about this, the sort of the side story here, is that part of what drove his decision making was stuff that we were doing at Mason, and that was absolutely fantastic to me. Very, very satisfying to see, as the word I use. But it's same here as we look and we see, all right, there are these, we can look at clearinghouse data at the end of every year. We can see where we lose. We can understand sticker price for those institutions. We can understand discount rates for those institutions. We have human intelligence. I mean, any recruiter that comes in and starts complaining about the lack of scholarships, I immediately say, great, I need you to collect 8 award letters for every single student who tells you that we lost because of price. Start asking for those. Start asking to see what these other packages look like. And again, then it becomes more like, quantitative or rather qualitative data at a certain point, because you don't have a complete picture of things. But then you can start to see, and you can start to, we would look in our data and we would say, hey, if our discount or our net price actually dropped, by X amount, our yield rate increases by Y amount. Well, we can cost that out. And as a result, we put more money in, we realize more net revenue, and we meet our headcount goals at the same time. That's one. The aid piece with a higher powered analyst can be very, very helpful. The other piece of it has to do with, I look at, let's say, high school graduation rates down to the district level is an example of this. So we are participant in the direct admissions movement. We actually seek to be one of the leaders in that space. And we do that and part of the reason we do that is looking at the impending cliff and realizing that some of our key feeders are fixing to start dropping but we've got places in the Commonwealth that aren't dropping, but they're not necessarily in a college-bound culture. And so we use those types of data to figure out where to prioritize our direct admissions program.
I think that's that's a rare and actionable thing that I've heard about, like demographic cliff, because it's hard to know what lever to pull there.
And I don't know if this is a popular or unpopular opinion. There are plenty of students for all of us if we just widened our funnels a little bit and looked at the types of students and our obligation for preparing these students to be successful at our institutions.
Widened our funnels, bought more names. Widened our funnels, admitted more kids. What are you saying?
I'm saying that, first of all, if you're a freshman focused enrollment operation, you are going to have a bad decade. If you are not open to ulterior pathways like via transfer into your institution, you're going to have a bad decade. Unless of course you're in the top brands. I mean, there's certain people who are going to win no matter what. But most of us are in the middle or beneath those brands. Um, so that's number one.
You're talking about like diversification of incoming student.
Absolutely. I also think you have to look at, I mean, this has been a movement a long time coming. Selectivity is, in my opinion, a pointless metric. And for years, it's been sort of a surrogate for quality. It's not a surrogate for quality. I think the insiders know that, but the general public does not know that. And so you have to start admitting to a different standard, and identifying talent in different places. And you have to analyze price points relative to different populations. Um, but you've got to think differently. I mean, is the shortest way to say that.
Yeah, I like that mental model for sure.
Well, so look at community colleges just by example, right?
Mhm.
So in the best community colleges in the US, only 20% of the students who say they want a 4-year degree go on and get a 4-year degree. That leaves 80% of potential students that could be captured with different approaches. It's the same in high schools. Look at your low income high schools. There's talent there. There are people who can be successful in college. We've got to cultivate that. We got to build new markets out of the same places. We have to build new markets out of the same locales.
Right, which like can't it would be a fool's errand if you just thought about it as like just like alchemy out of nothing. It like can't be.
Well, or we all run to Chicago, or we all run to Texas, which is kind of what we're doing, right?
Yes, I can attest to that. It's funny. Finally, people about 6 months ago, people finally stopped telling me they were like adding more energy in Texas, like it was a secret. Because people I talk to forget that I'm talking to like 20 of them a week.
Right.
They're like, "Well, we think we're gonna go to Texas." I'm like, okay, because the last 19 dudes told me the same thing.
That's right. Don't tell anybody. We think Dallas has a future. Okay, great. I said it out loud.
Cool. Yeah. People finally stopped like making, but that was pretty recent that people weren't like whispering that to me. Okay. Question I want to ask you that if we can in production put this at the top of the episode, I would appreciate that. But if not, fine. Okay, I want to ask you a question about your course. What is the pitch for your course and how do you join your course? What will people get out of it? And how do they go find it?
I think that the NatGet course has value it has two different types of value. If you are, and let's say after year one of getting the mechanics of doing the job, and things like using the CRM, things like pitching your institution. I mean, there's a lot that has to be done in year one, and I think it's very easy to overwhelm them. But
Mhm.
as you migrate from one to year two, this is absolutely a course you should be taking, and or year three for that matter. Sort of as you're beginning to emerge in the field. The second use case I think is in that 4 to 7, right? Like you've been doing the job. If anything, maybe you think you've got the job figured out. This is a class that's going to tell you that
The
maybe you
level
don't.
up.
Yeah, you
Sure.
don't have it figured out exactly. And if you're going to do this and then something else, you're going to make that work. And then the third use case is, hey, you're someone who's been doing it for 10 or 15 years, but you haven't been raised in a data informed culture. Like in
Mm.
other words, you've just been doing high school visits and events and doing the things and doing them maybe even pretty well. But you've got to retrofit. There is not, I would say that the 21st century hang on, let me start over that because I've got a really awesome thing that you're going to want to use. Um, in order to be a professional in higher education at this point in time, you have to be fluent in the language of data. That doesn't mean you have to be a data analyst, but you have to be able to understand it, explain it, and talk about it. And that's true for deans, directors, and entry-level professionals. In order to get hooked up with the course, it's very simple. First of all, if you're a NACAC member, I'm sorry, you've probably already been pitched a dozen times that this course is out there. But we start a couple of cohorts over the summer, and I highly recommend people check out whether one of those cohorts would work for them via NACAC.
Awesome. Like the aspect of fluency, I think that's really important. And the phrase that comes to mind is like, if you haven't been taught well, now is the time to like reparent yourself.
Oh,
And
that's a great word.
well, it's like what we talk about in like, like human psychology is like the aspect of like going back into your childhood and showing yourself that you now are okay. And I think about that if you didn't get the right start or if you didn't get that data fluency early on in your career, like you actually have to go get that for yourself. Feels really important.
Totally agree. And that was me. I mean, I started in 1998. It's not like we had a whole lot of access to data. I mean, we were visualizing through Excel.
You had a room full of filing cabinets.
Exactly. Exactly. We were receiving our applications via email. Consider today's data privacy standards, things like credit cards, social security numbers were all being emailed into the system.
I mean, I think I faxed mine a few places. I mailed mine a bunch of places.
All right, but here's more vulnerability. Emily, you've done a really good job today being vulnerable. What year did you enter undergrad?
2000, the year 2000.
Okay. I was 1992, so, just a couple of years in front of you.
Yeah, yeah. I remember like putting my pen to the Common App thinking like, well, if I write really neatly, my application will stand out. Because at that time you could fill it on a typewriter or fill a PDF. I
Right.
was like, no, I'm going to old school this. I'm going to write it with a pen.
Did you think it worked? Did it work for you?
I mean, here I am still in higher education, also with a literature degree. So
Living the dream.
living the dream, baby. Okay, well, I'm going to pop our bubble, talk about something sad it's like data related, and this can go at the end of the episode. Okay, David, it's been a hell of a week, month, year in higher education. I was speaking to a New York ACAC group this week, and I said, like, those factories that have those like number of days since the last accident or injury on the factory floor, and like you're happy when it's like hundreds of days in a row without incident. Higher education right now is in this state of like 0 days, and the next day it's going to be 0 days, and we're going to keep ripping off to be 0 days. Data related question. With the recent executive order targeting and the dismantlement of the Department of Education, like how concerned are you about the integrity and availability of like our national education sources? Do you think about that? Are you not thinking about it? Are you like, okay, John Bockenstead like downloaded everything and we're cool? Like,
I saw that. Like, I don't need the feds. I got John. What do I have to worry about?
He even reposted it. He was like, don't worry, I got it. Like, okay, but
This database that we can all, punch into.
yes, hat tip to the man before he retires. But do you think about that? Do you think about that in a tangible way? Like if we don't have the data that describes our profession, WTF?
Well, I teach in the course that some of the data that was available, and now that I'm thinking about it, I may have to retinker with some of the course content because I send them to College Navigator, although Navigator's still up there for the time being. But my point is that I believe in that the availability of federally provided data makes us all better. That we and it improves competition, which makes us all better, which does things like keep prices in check and make sure that we're responsive to our markets. Like we use that data to make good decisions for students and businesses and our communities. So let me affirm, no doubt, this is not superfluous data. If it is permanently gone, it will have a negative effect on our business. full stop. Do I think about that? Do I worry about that? I mean, there's a lot of things right now that you could really get worried about. That's not number one on my list,
Okay.
right? Like it is though the type of thing that we as a, I mean, I think if anything, it's gonna highlight the value of third parties. There's a lot of vendors out there who collect, store, and assemble data, and that's going to only make that more valuable.
Oh, like you think somebody's gonna just come into that space of being like, okay, fine. Well,
Well, let's talk about, like, say, the clearinghouse, for example, right? I mean, like there. So are places like that are places like College Vine or Encora or like lots of places that could kind of step in and fill some gap, but it's not going to be the same. But I think there's such an appetite for it, something will fill the void.
okay, David Burge, as we are wrapping up, can you tell people how to find you, where to find you online, where to track you down?
I don't like to leave a digital footprint, so pass. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, I'm on the, you can find me on X. I think I'm David underscore Burge. I mostly use X to brag about how good I am at video games, though. And of course on LinkedIn, if you'd like to connect with me. I do have a policy though. I have to have actually had a conversation with you in order for me to accept the connection. Now that's a new policy, so there's probably some people right now who are like, "Wait, how did I get through? That was a mistake."
Oh, that was a mistake. Damn.
No, I just mean I've changed practice. But yeah, LinkedIn, X, these are good places to find me.
So if you are out there and you are a connection of David Burge and you have not had a conversation, please remove yourself from his connections and just follow him instead.
Or call me. Pick the phone and call me. Figure out a way to get in touch with me.
All right, David Burge, on that somber note, thank you for this very fun time. I appreciate you being here on the Vine Down.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. See you next time, folks.